Hola, this is Enrique Morones of Gente Unida, Buen Hombre Magnificent Mujer, and we're back with this very special podcast today because of the 50th anniversary of Chicano Park, which is going to be going on all year. And as we just heard from Rigo, now we're going to have a series of guests, and we're introducing a very powerful upcoming Chicana artist who does magnificent work, and her name is Jessica Angelica Gonzalez. Jessica, how you doing?
I'm good.
So, Jess, you're a wonderful Chicana artist. I've seen your work. You do beautiful, beautiful work. But why don't you tell us in a sentence or two? Well, you can't tell us in a sentence or two. You need a few more. Who is Jess?
Who is Jess? A 27-year-old artist, born and raised in Escondido, and made my way out here to Barrio, Logan, and now University Heights. A portrait artist.
So you're from Escondido. You're a very talented artist. Tell us how you came down to Chicano Park. Because I've seen that you have a studio and want to hear about that. I've seen some of your art, but tell us, you got involved in your art. You told me earlier that it started in grammar school when you saw the person sitting next to you that had done a beautiful design, and you thought, wow, there is a beauty in art. And that's when you started drawing and painting. You go to high school, you start taking art classes, and now you're making these beautiful drawings and paintings. So what drew you down to Chicano Park?
It was during my search for any kind of art gallery or art, anything art related out in San Diego. I had just gotten my car around that time, so I was ready to just go out and explore. And so I Googled art galleries, and none of them really struck me. And then I saw Chicano Park, and I went there immediately the next day.
So you go to Chicano Park, and I remember you told me a little bit about your family. You have, I believe, 4 sisters. Your dad is surrounded by all these women, all this love. You leave that nest to Chicano Park, to where you're living now, and now you see all these murals. You see all these murals at Chicano Park, and so what did you think when you saw all that?
I thought it was extremely powerful. I had never seen anything like that for us before. Everything from the history being intertwined with art and it being accessible in that way. It wasn't in any fancy art gallery. It was in the community, and it was for everyone to see, whether you're passing by in your car or not. It was something that you can't pass up, and so I just kind of dove in from there.
Yes, and Chicano Park is such a special place. I know that it's been very powerful to me, having grown up close to Chicano Park. I grew up in Golden Hill.
Oh.
To see that wonderful art, how has your family responded when they saw that you were going to be an artist? What did they think?
It wasn't something that I really told them. I think it's just something that they saw me grow into my whole life. So it wasn't really a question of it. I know that when I was in and out of jobs, they were a little worried, but they knew my personality, and that that wasn't my goal to work in any company or anything like that. I think they always knew that this was kind of for me, but the past there, they were, worried usually, but always looking out for me, always supportive.
Yeah, they wanted you to follow your passion, and your passion is art.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about these artists. You mentioned something previously about Picasso and his style of art.
His line work was, I had done a piece in I think my senior year or sophomore year, and I had never seen his work yet. So when I saw his, it not that I was even remotely as good as him, but our styles were similar in the sense that there was a lot of line work. Mine didn't have a lot of color like his did, but just the dramatic lines that always led to something or even nothing at all. It was beautiful. And that
quite an artist.
Yeah.
And then you have a studio. Where's your studio at? How did that come? How did that develop?
It's in Barrio Logan at the Art Hub. It's a little tucked away, but you find your way. And I stumbled across there while I was going to Por Vida every week. I was driving down from Escondido out to Logan constantly. And then Milo, the owner, kept telling me, you know, you need to come out here and enter your work. He was always supportive. And then I just happened to find out on Instagram that there was a studio for rent. And so I called up Chris immediately and went down there and bought it the same day.
And you have a studio in Barrio Logan, and hopefully it'll be open soon, because of the situation that we're in has been very difficult. And you have a great opportunity with one of the great muralists and painters to maybe give you some tips and some guidance. And that, of course, is Mario Torero. How has he influenced what you're doing?
He's encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone for sure. He's giving me an environment that's inspiring in every way. He opens his studio up to me anytime, any day. If I decide to start a piece late at night, you know, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, he encourages it, my work all the time, or any artist for that matter. So, but also he creates this kind of like passionate atmosphere with just his demeanor and his personality that really gets me like off my ass.
Inspiring, and it's just the ambiance. Now, it's about your art. You have some wonderful paintings. Tell me a little bit about these paintings. You have one that I think, well, I don't know. Do you have names for these paintings?
No, and that's something that Mario has taught me, to always date them, sign them, and give them a name, which I have done to none of them, but I will start.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Now, one of them, I believe you said it was a nativo. Maybe this one here with the kind of the dark shadows around the eyes. Tell me a little bit about that painting.
The inspiration behind it, or the process of it?
Well, both.
Okay. I just start off usually with a general outline of a portrait, and then I blare music, and whatever that music makes me feel always reflects the color choices and the patterns of the lines and where they're going. And then everything on the outside of the main portrait is in the moment. So whatever I'm feeling with the change of song, it just goes wherever the hell it wants, and I go with it.
How about this one with the is kind of it looks like maybe a man. You see the shading on his side of his face. What can you tell me about this one?
That was a late night sketch, and that was again another face that just I rolled with it, and then music was playing, and I intertwined the inspiration at the time, which were buildings, and I was driving around town a lot and taking pictures of buildings, trying to memorize how they looked and the way they flow. And I couldn't quite capture the buildings, but I wanted to include the power lines that I've always been obsessed with staring at for some strange reason. So those added up, and kind of like on his mind, what he's thinking about.
And then because these are all this art is so different. The one that I can relate to the most, that it's the art that I'm more familiar with, is there's a painting here of a woman looking down, smiling. What's the story behind that one?
That was my portrait series that I offered the last week or two, where I made portraits as accessible as I can by offering them for a lower cost. And so that's my girlfriend that ordered one of them, and I wanted to capture her sweetness that I always saw in her, and that yellow was always like that color that I related to her. So she's a beautiful person.
Yeah, she's a beautiful person, and you capture that in the painting. And is it difficult when somebody like that, or anybody, buys one of your paintings, like all of a sudden you're thinking, I kind of want to keep that painting? Do you ever have any of that type of feeling?
Sometimes, but but I think I find a lot of joy in giving it out. I have a bad habit of giving things out for free or for low cost, because if someone can connect to it enough to want it, then I usually don't have too much of a hard time giving it away, unless there was like a really deep emotional connection that makes it tougher.
Uh-huh. And Jess, how about the one with the woman with the like a circle around her eye, blue circle?
That was done in my studio. That one I took a little more time on, and it's much bigger than my usual drawings. It takes up almost a full wall. So I was wanting to get out of my comfort zone from a small paper to a larger surface and play with like the movement of my body while I paint. That was a lot of fun, and I was kind of going through this I don't know, emotional time at that time. So, and I was observing a lot of people's actions. So that's where that circle kind of came in, like she's looking at you and observing you, kind of like sniffing people out, you know, reading them.
When like on that circle there, did you do that freehand, or did you have something that you used to help you make the circle?
No, I love circles, so I do them all the time. It's kind of wonky on the left side, but yeah, I did that freehand. I did it all freehand.
Wow. Okay, how about this one with it looks like a man with a little beanie, and there's a couple of birds. There's a bird on his head. There's another bird on the side of his cap, and he's got a scarf on. Very appropriate now for this virus time. What is that one all about?
That was done after I got off the phone with my friend Bernie, and he makes beautiful music, beats and whatnot. So he had sent me 3 of them, and I wouldn't stop playing them because they were short clips. And so I just kept looping them, and that was the outcome of looping. And that's what it kind of made me feel while I was drawing. The birds were kind of representative of just feeling peaceful and almost not caring what was going on around me, just being in that moment.
Okay. The next one, there's a man with glasses on. Looks like maybe he's got a little bit of beard, and he's got a black background there.
Oh, that was a fun one. I just started with the glasses and the eyes, and then I went from there. There's no real meaning behind it. I was experimenting with color and facial features. I don't really do beards or anything like that, so I wanted to try something new. So that's where a lot of that comes in.
And then there's another one that's also different from the rest. It looks like a woman, and there's some writing going across. You wrote something.
Yeah. Again, that was music that was playing. A band called Bad Bad Not Good, and that's the way it made me feel, her facial expression. And then I rolled it through my typewriter, and then typed the lyrics on there and organized the lettering in a way that complemented the angle that she's at. So I kind of had to fiddle with the typewriter. But yeah, that was a result of that.
And I know it's different for all of them, but how long does it take to do these paintings? Like what is the shortest to the longest, more or less? What's the shortest time you spent on the painting?
An hour. And
an hour is the shortest. What's the longest?
The shortest for a painting.
And what's the longest?
A couple weeks. The one in my studio took maybe 2 or 3.
It's amazing. That still seems like a short amount of time. How about this last one we'll talk about? The one with the woman with the scarf and the hoodie, and she's holding something.
She's holding something. Oh, that one. Yeah, that was an old photo that I had seen of a nun or a nurse or something. And she didn't look very happy to be doing what she's doing. So I over-exaggerated her unhappiness in the eyes. And then there's a lot of dishonesty going on with other people at that time. So I incorporated the snakes kind of not in a danger to her, but almost like protecting her in a way. And then the mirror was as a symbol of reflection to make sure that I'm observing people correctly while also putting myself in check. So it was
so that is
more
symbolic. A lot of yeah, that's very involved. Yeah, so I think Mario's right. You got to put names on these, and that'll take some time to come up with names on these various paintings. Well, Jess, as you know, our theme is Chicano Park. So what does Chicano Park mean to you?
It means a lot. I think when I first went there, the first feeling that came to me was just power, maybe the power and the history of it, the power and the preservation that people are putting into it, because it's easy to put something up, but it's a whole other thing to keep it and preserve it and love it and celebrate it. So it's fucking beautiful. It is beautiful. And speaking of beautiful, your work is beautiful. You're a beautiful person, and one of the things I often ask people is, what is love? What is love to Jess? What is love to you? Love to me is understanding. If you don't understand something, you can't get to the bottom of it. You can't truly see its beauty. But there's so much that I think lies on the surface of something. And when you scrape up the bad and the ugly and the beautiful, and you understand why it is what it is, I think that's love to me.
Well said. Well, one of the things, Jess, before we leave, how can people get a hold of your art? If they want to purchase some art, if they want to go to your studio, how can they get a hold of you? If they want to purchase some art and find out what's going on.
My Instagram page, Jeff, it'll be a little easier that way. But for now, through Instagram and email.
All right. Well, Jess, thank you very much. Jess Gonzalez, she's a wonderful artist, beautiful work that she's done, a very up-and-coming Chicana artist, and it's a pleasure to have you on. Muchísimas gracias. Don't forget that amor, sí se puede, and it's an action, not just a word. So thank you for joining us. We're going to have other people joining us throughout this podcast and throughout the year to celebrate Chicano Park, to celebrate the history, the present, and the future. And without a doubt, Jess is part of that future. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much.